Would you find it helpful if your marriage had a check engine light? I'm Leslie Dories, your marriage coach and creator of the Hero Husband Project, and sometimes I think that would be really, really helpful. And I'm going to tell you there actually is one thing that can serve as a check engine light. And that thing is if you've ever said or heard your partner say, it's not that bad. Now, a lot of people will take better care of their cars than they do of their marriages. And back in the old days, you used to be able to put your car underneath the tree and get under the hood and figure it out yourself. Unfortunately, cars have gotten much, much more complicated than they used to be, and it's kind of hard sometimes to do your own repair work. So the question I have is, what do you do when your check engine light comes on? I'm going to tell you, my daughter almost immediately takes it right into the shop. I maybe not so much, but we all have different levels of comfort with things that might be going wrong. And I kind of learned this 3 weeks ago when my computer fell on the floor and I busted the screen. I had been living with this computer that I didn't really like, that was starting to wear out, that was starting to create frustration for me. And I just didn't do anything about it. I didn't back up stuff. I didn't because I just didn't have time, right? I figured I would do it later. And so I was suffering through things that really were annoying until the decision was taken out of my hands. And unfortunately, that's what happens a lot of times in relationships, where you recognize things maybe aren't that great, but because you don't know what to do, or because relationships are much more complicated than people think, you might try things. You'll try what you know how to do, and if it doesn't work, well, you tried. But here's the deal: if you take your relationship to a mechanic, they can fix it. I had to go get to a computer store and I needed expert input, right? I can use technology, but I also recognize my limitations with technology. I have no desire to sit there and play around and try to figure stuff out. I just want it to work. And I recognize this about myself. I admit it. And so when I need help, I will ask for it in terms of technology. Maybe not some other things, but definitely in terms of technology. And a lot of times we think that because we've been in relationships before, you've been in relationships before, you know what to do. But if you're married, every relationship you've had before this one has ended. So what are you going to do differently to keep this one going? And one of the things that people do is adopt the Scarlett O'Hara view of life. I'll think about it tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day. Until your marriage goes crashing on the floor and breaks. And you don't necessarily know when that's going to happen. As with my computer, I knew it was getting to be on its last legs, and I thought I had time to do all the research and figuring out what I was going to do until it accidentally slipped off my desk and hit the floor. And this is what happens with a lot of marriages, is that one of you decides they've had enough and divorce enters the picture. And then the person who was thinking, it's not that bad, is suddenly running around with their hair on fire. When, with taking care of it, like when the engine light comes on, when you hear it's not that bad, or you think it's not that bad, that is a warning sign. Because if you can't say your marriage is good, then it's just not that bad. And somewhere one of you is settling. Just like I was settling for this less than wonderful computer that I had been using. And I'm going to tell you, it's a lot easier to replace a computer than it is to replace half of your life. So if you are struggling Or if you have this thought, it's not that bad. Or if your partner has said, it's not that bad. You need to take action. That is your marriage warning light. And you may not be able to wait until tomorrow because it might break this afternoon. And in that case, you don't have the options that you would have if you took care of it. Because once divorce is mentioned, and I'm not talking about it being used as just threatened. I don't think that's a lie for another day. But if one of you is seriously contemplating divorce, whether or not you've mentioned it, that again, that is a hair on fire situation that needs to be dealt with. Because once people start going down that road, it can be hard to pull them back. At one point in time, now, could I have taken my computer in and have the screen repaired again, which I had already had done once this year? No. I just decided it wasn't worth it. And unfortunately, a lot of people feel the same way when they get to that point. They don't see that there's a possibility, and that's where everything all falls apart. So if you're interested in actually having your marriage work and not just survive but thrive, then there are things that you can do. And you may not know what they are. Like, I don't know how to deal with technologies. Nobody wants me writing a computer program. Oh my God, that would be the last thing you would want me to do, because that's not my forte. What you want are people, you want to go to somebody who knows what they're doing. Now, if that's me, if you think that I know what I'm doing, I invite you to get in touch. If it's somebody else that you know, please, but don't wait, because you may not have a tomorrow in terms of your relationship. So please get in touch with me. Please subscribe to the channel. Please, 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 please do something before your marriage breaks down by the side of the road or falls off the desk and breaks, or whatever analogy you want to use, because time is limited. You may think you have more time than you do. But if you don't know that for sure, if you don't know that you would say your marriage is good and your partner would say your marriage is good, then you've got check warning light coming on. So hopefully that was helpful. Please, if you have any questions, I would love to know what your biggest marriage challenge is so I can address them in the lives. But please get in touch with me. And until next week, stay loving.